How much do you know about the birth control pill?
Behind the juicy promise of helping you achieve bodily autonomy and uninterrupted love life, birth control methods have a notorious history of enslaving women. Before it became a go-to solution for most women, hundreds of others have been robbed of their health, joy, and sanity. They'll shriek in their graves, seeing how popular it is now. How bad can birth control pills get? Although there exist various reasons for birth control, its major aim is to prevent pregnancy. Yes, it has notable side effects, but some experts argue that the benefits outweigh those. This remains debatable, however. Some birth control methods are safe, while others aren't. Experts say birth control methods must be administered under strict supervision, or else it increases the chances of some suicidal side effects. These pills, even though common, are dangerous. Having fewer children while living healthy is the main motivation for birth control. Unfortunately, you may have been brainwashed into believing it's best for you. Of course, doctors want to offer consultations and sell these pills. Aside from the profit that comes from selling it, doctors may probably not promote it as much as they do now. If you've been considering contraceptives, like hormonal birth control, you may want to sit back for a few minutes watching this video. Stories from its earliest days are not so pleasant, but this exposure is necessary. Birth control, as we know it today, has been around for thousands of years, but hormonal contraceptives are fairly new. The earliest ones date back to ancient Mesopotamia, around 1850 BC. The Romans, Greeks, and Egyptians all had something they used to control birth. As you may expect, they were unsafe since they were not vetted by any medical professional. Ancient people used acacia leaves, honey, and lint as a cervical cap to prevent sperm from entering the womb. In Egypt, extended breastfeeding for up to 3 years was also used as a form of birth control. In ancient Greece, plants like asafoetida and Queen Anne's lace were also used to control birth. The withdrawal method was common and hailed as the most effective method. The ancient methods were convenient but dangerous and toxic. However, childbirth in ancient times was dangerous to the mother and child, so the women took the risk. You won't believe that in ancient Greece, women were advised to drink copper salts dissolved in water to prevent pregnancy. In the early 1800s, the US had one of the highest birth rates in the world. The average woman in the US had 8 children, but in the later part of the century, the figure dropped to 3. At the time, many religions warned against the moral dangers of family planning, but these warnings didn't deter women from controlling birth. By the 1840s, many state legislatures banned contraceptives, and abortions were taboo in many countries. In the US, women used vaginal suppositories and withdrawal methods to block sperm from entering the cervix. 1909 introduced more modern methods of birth control. Unfortunately, the banning of information concerning safe sex and contraceptives made it dangerous for advocates of women's reproductive health to distribute information about birth control products. Margaret Sanger was uncomfortable with the status quo and realised that the absurdity shortchanged women's health. She took a bold move and established the first birth control clinic in 1916. It was shut down 3 days after the authorities accused her of violating the Comstock Act. The trial even made the birth control movement more popular and led to the rise of prominent feminists and doctors.
Women are not even accepted as human beings.
These advocates wanted the world to know that sex and procreation were two different phenomena and shouldn't be mixed. By the 1920s, the US attitude to birth control had changed dramatically. Today, the country is one of the most liberal regarding women's rights. Modern birth controls are relatively safer, and there are many options to choose from. This ensures that women have more autonomy over their sexual and reproductive health. They can also choose what is best for them without society interfering. Modern birth control involves using devices, medicines, or surgery to prevent pregnancy. While some methods are reversible, others aren't. The United States Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the World Health Organization provide guidance on the safety of birth control methods among women. The chances of getting pregnant after unprotected sex are high, so if you don't need a baby, these control methods help you stay safe. The debate on which method of birth control is safest is lifelong. Experts have not answered that, but they only encourage that any method chosen must be administered safely. Some more common methods are the diaphragm, spermicide, condoms, cervical cap, sponge, birth control implant, intrauterine device or IUD, hormonal contraception, and a host of others. The idea of birth control is exciting, especially if you have 2 or 3 kids and don't want more. Before booking that consultation, you should know about some suicidal myths no one talks about. Many women never remain the same after taking their first pill. They wish they had seen a video like this. Now that opportunity has presented itself. Stay tuned. Planned Parenthood, a leading birth control clinic, says that although complications are rare, they can have serious health implications. Side effects from pills range from minor issues to life-threatening ones. Ironically, some doctors prefer to focus on those minor side effects because emphasizing on the life-threatening ones would discourage women from it. Only a few people look beyond the facade to investigate if contraceptives are right for them. Around 12.6% of women in the US aged between 15 to 49 years take oral contraceptive pills, some of which are safe. Others who die from these effects don't have the opportunity to tell their experiences. Some of the most common effects of birth control pills paraded online are nausea, headaches, breast tenderness, weight gain, mood swings, vaginal discharge, or decreased libido. Any woman reading this wouldn't find it discouraging to get that birth control implant, since these symptoms are present in regular drugs. What if I told you that birth control pills increase your chances of committing suicide? Well, I bet your doctor hid it from you, and here's why. Hormonal birth control is a type of contraceptive that uses hormones to prevent pregnancy. It contains progesterone, estrogen, or progesterone alone. It prevents pregnancy by stopping the release of eggs from the ovaries, thickening the mucus in the cervix, or thinning the lining of the uterus. They are either taken orally, placed on the skin like a patch, or injected into the uterus or vagina. Scientists have revealed a piece of awful information about this method. Several robust studies in Denmark showed that women's hormonal birth control is linked to a greater risk of suicide and depression. Critics say this detail may be inconsequential, since it doesn't link this form of contraceptive directly to suicide. They argue that pregnancy is also linked to some adverse mental health outcomes. During her over 2 years of professional practice, Dr. Monique Tello, a physician at Massachusetts General Hospital, interacted with various patients who underwent hormonal contraception. The responses were similar. They said they had sessions of depression snowballing into suicidal feelings. She wasn't the only one slightly investigating the menace. She was in touch with her colleagues in and out of the state, and the report was similar. In an article published on Harvard's health blog, she noted that, while many of these did not show a definitive association, a critical review of the literature revealed that all of it has been of poor quality, relying on iffy methods like self-reporting, recall, and insufficient numbers of subjects. To further buttress these claims, a high-quality study in 2016 opened an aspect of the research that no one had touched. Scientists at the University of Copenhagen studied data from Denmark's national health system on over 1 million women aged between 15 to 34. They found that hormonal contraception was associated with the use of antidepressants and a first diagnosis of depression. Dr. Tello was impressed with the result of the research, as it confirmed her fears that hormonal contraceptives were not the best after all. The huge moral question in this debate is this: should doctors stop prescribing hormonal birth control? Many responded with an emphatic no. They defended it, saying that while the risk of depression increased, the number of victims was small. Only 2.2 out of 100 women suffered this fate. This is probably why this method of birth control will never be cancelled. The other victims can also become the scapegoat, provided more women are safe. 2 years after this research, the University of Copenhagen utilised Denmark's health data to explore the link between hormonal birth control and suicide. They were certain that something positive would come out of the studies, and they were right. Compared to women who had never used hormonal birth control, women were 3 times more likely to commit suicide and twice likely to attempt it. About 20 to 25% of the 77 million women aged 15 to 49 in the US use hormonal contraception. Judging by the results from these Danish researchers, it is safe to say that around 5,500 Americans in this group have suicidal tendencies. Dr. Jessica Kiley, a gynecologist at Northwestern University Feinberg School of Medicine, argues this association is not the same as cause. Kiley and her team noted that it's unfair to demonize hormonal contraceptives. She further noted that unwanted pregnancies and other factors trigger depression. To further sell this idea to the public, she quoted a study conducted in Bangladesh. Researchers argued that women with unwanted pregnancies had a 60% higher risk of prenatal and 32% higher risk of postnatal depressive symptoms than women with intended pregnancies. We can agree that women are different during pregnancy. However, when this feeling is induced, it can cause them to go haywire. You don't think your hormones want to be disturbed? No, they don't. They want to change naturally without triggers. Ultimately, every medication has its downsides, but one must weigh the pros and cons to see which is greater. Depression and suicide aside, one can increase their chances of breast cancer by taking birth control pills. Safer birth control methods have not eliminated the risk that existed decades ago. In the 1960s, more women in the US suffered breast cancer as a side effect of birth control pills. The debate is not different today. The figures may have been reduced significantly, but they are worth discussing, especially with the rise in the use of oral contraceptives. Studies have examined the use of oral contraceptives and their connection with cancers, particularly breast cancer. The results are conflicting. Some researchers say the contradiction is because the level of hormones in birth control pills has changed since they were last studied. Early birth control pills had higher levels of hormones, unlike modern ones with lower doses. Scandinavian researchers conducted a more recent study on the subject matter. They found that longer use of the pill increases cancer risks. After examining women who stopped using birth control pills, they found that their breast cancer risk returned to the same level as if they had never used it before. You can give the pills a shot if you think you're not at risk of breast cancer. However, those with a family history of breast cancer had better abstain from it. A study published in the Journal of the American Medical Association found that women with a family history of cancer were 11 times more likely to have breast cancer after taking the pill. Should you insist on taking it, speak to an expert. Remember that their words are sometimes not the gospel. Their assurance may fail at some point in your life. Older women too can consider other safer birth control methods because age increases the chances of cancer. Even if you need to use it, settle for lower doses, so that you know lower doses are not 100% assured. Let's go a bit more intensely and draw a link between the human brain and birth control pills. You don't think there's any relationship between the two, right? I thought so too, until I did my research after the researchers did theirs. Experts studying the brain recently revealed that women taking oral contraceptives had smaller hypothalamus than those who didn't. This part of the brain is located at the base, near the pituitary gland. It produces hormones that regulate essential bodily functions like appetite, sex drive, mood, heart rate, and sleep cycles. Research on the effect of these pills on the hypothalamus was not reported until 2019. In the study, Dr. Lipton and his colleagues recruited 50 healthy women. Of the figure, 21 women were taking oral contraceptives. They underwent an MRI, after which the doctors measured the size of their hypothalamus. At the end of the research, they found a dramatic difference in the size of the brain structures between women who took contraceptives and those who didn't. Further findings also showed that the smaller hypothalamic volume was associated with greater anger. However, Dr. Lipton argued that the findings were preliminary and that more in-depth research is needed to confirm the speculation. The hypothalamus is part of the brain that controls the release of several hormones in the body. It can alter mood, sleep, heart rate, sex drive, and a woman's appetite. It's unclear if prolonged usage worsens this condition, but we hope to hear more from Dr. Lipton and his team. However, the point has been made. If you're currently on any birth control pill, would you mind telling us why you chose it? Please leave your answer in the comment box, or feel free to keep it to yourself. Recently, critics have been louder about their indifference to the pill. The fact that women are coerced into using these pills, but society is silent about it, says a lot about who we have become. Aside from the mental and physical damage it causes women, critics fear that most women took it due to pressure from partners, friends, family, and society. It is often a case of putting the burden of pregnancy prevention on the woman while ignoring the fact that it takes two to tango. In her book, Just Get on the Pill, Crystal E. Littlejohn, a sociology professor, argued that birth control no longer empowers modern-day women as it did decades ago. She interrogated a phenomenon called gender compulsory birth control, where women are compelled to use birth control methods to prevent pregnancy. She argues that this phenomenon penetrates a woman's life and places an undue burden on her. The media makes things worse by blaming teenage pregnancies on women for not taking the pill. You'll hear things like, "You should have taken the pill," or "She was misguided for getting pregnant." Notice how the other party is deliberately excluded from the blame. In a broader sense, all birth control methods have gender undertones. They were made for females with little or no attention to males. Think about the shot, IUD, implant, patch, gel, ring, and the list goes on. Meanwhile, the closest we've seen for males are male condoms. Even at that, they don't get as much attention as female birth control methods. Newer forms of female contraceptives are developed in the labs to introduce diversity. When scientists tried to develop new male birth control methods, the research was halted because the males used for clinical trials reported side effects like mood swings and acne, similar to what women experienced. Marginalised people like women of colour, women with disabilities, and poor women are worst hit by this pressure. Many of them do not enjoy the autonomy earlier promised by the pill. It was just a case of doing it because their family or partner wanted it. Society forces us to believe that women who take pills choose to do it, but that is not always the case. We've seen countless instances where courts coerce women to take the pill or risk a jail sentence. In January 2003, a court stated that it wanted to prevent Games, an alleged drug abuser, from having more children. Judge Higgins, therefore, declared that he would put her on IUD. She objected due to personal concerns and medical complications associated with the procedure, but her plea fell on deaf ears. Judge Higgins justified the ruling by saying the third child was at risk of having special needs. Women like Games have little or no say in cases like this. It's sad that in 2023, women will bear the consequences of men's actions. Having both partners share the consequence is better than blaming it entirely on one person. Little John advocates for shared responsibility. One way we can achieve that is by encouraging dual method protection. If the woman must take the pill, the man should also wear condoms diligently. Another way to degender birth control is by discussing the adverse effects of pills with one's partner. The men coercing their wives to take pills may be hugely uninformed about the consequences. Researchers can also create this balance by returning to the lab once more. With more control options for men, there's a higher chance of adherence. If you've ever told a woman to take the pill, I hope you can see how unfair that sounds. It's hard to decide what aspect of birth control is worse. You don't know if it's cancer, depression, or societal pressure. To add to the downsides, these pills have a dark history concealed from the public for obvious reasons. This part of this video had to come at the end, so you get both sides of the story without mixing them. It tells the actual story of birth control pills and its earliest victims. The official development of birth control pills began in 1950 after Margaret Sanger approached Pincus to start working on a reliable contraceptive. After its official release, it became a go-to drug for women who wanted to control birth. However, the development of the drug paved the way for some ethical questions regarding research methods. The creators of this contraceptive misled their test subjects into giving their consent. In the middle and early 20th century, it was illegal to distribute contraceptives in some states. Due to the strict laws, they couldn't pass these pills across to the test population. Therefore, they sought a dubious way to get it done. They lied to women who visited the hospital for infertility issues and told them that the pills could help them get pregnant. The excited women took it home, hoping they had found the answer to several years of infertility. The Food and Drug Administration approves a drug only after 3 testing phases, spanning about a decade. Only in rare cases like the coronavirus outbreak did we see the production of vaccines within a shorter period. It was the same with the birth control pills we see today. When it was approved in 1960, it had been tested on 30 women. Even then, Pincus and his team figured that the FDA might question the number, so they inflated it to sound more impressive. Pincus claimed they gave out 40,000 pills, but only 100 women took them. If this report had been presented today, birth pills probably wouldn't have existed. The women who participated in the trials never got pregnant and didn't live to know the truth. You would think that the exploitation ended in America. The team also travelled to the slums of Puerto Rico, where they claimed to have found women willing to try it. It was easier for them to have their way since the region had no restrictions on birth control. They manipulated the women into taking the pills and recruited college students too. Students that refused to participate in the trials were blackmailed with bad grades until they eventually succumbed. After that, they headed to mental hospitals where they didn't need permission from the patients. Unfortunately, this trial wasn't helpful since the females in the facility were not sexually active. It was difficult to tell whether or not the pills affect ovulation. Already, mental problems disrupted the menstrual cycle of many women. Another shocking fact about these criminal trials was that the doctor in charge was a devout Catholic. He was a gynecologist who didn't believe all his church doctrines. He believed sex wasn't just for procreation. He may have been a hero for this belief, but he didn't have to take it too far. Being caught between taking birth control pills or not is not a favourable position to be in. Unfortunately, the sad reality glares at you in the face. Which will you succumb to get it or not? Let us know in the comment box below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Incredibler for more content like this.